Welcome back, story lovers, to The King's Price, Part 2. They were bound by a love as terrifying as it was absolute. Luca took a bullet to secure Zara's freedom, offering her back her untouched life. But she refused to leave. She chose the man over the escape, making a true blood oath on his bedside. No more lies, and we face the ashes of your old life together. The Volkov Vipers, the most ruthless faction of the Russian syndicate, marked by the chilling symbol of the crowned eagle. They didn't want the territory, they wanted the legacy. They wanted to prove the marble king could be broken. Now, cornered in a life they hoped would be quiet, Luca and Zara must fight one last desperate and bloody battle. He must sacrifice the last ghost of his power, and she must risk everything to save the man she loves from the enemies of the man he used to be. The price of their peace is about to be paid in full. The moment Luca recognized the crowned eagle insignia, the humble cafe in the sun-drenched town of their new life vanished, replaced by the damp gloom of the Docklands warehouse. The gentle touch of Zara's waist was instantly armored by his protective grip. "Come on," he murmured, his voice now low and deceptively calm, guiding her toward the back exit. "Let's go home." He didn't need to explain. The chilling, immediate focus in his eyes was the only explanation Zara needed. The quiet vulnerability she had come to love evaporated, replaced by the terrifying efficiency of the Marble King. She didn't argue. She simply pulled on his arm, a silent command for him to look at her. "The lie is dead, Luca, but the fear isn't," she whispered. "If we run together. No looking back and no pushing me away. You gave up your throne, but the enemies didn't give up their grudge. This is our war now." He saw the resolution in her eyes, the fierce devotion that had made her tackle Petrov. He nodded, a sharp single movement. The blood oath was still active, and now it was a shared vow. They left the cafe through the alley, moving with the practiced swiftness of those accustomed to being hunted. Luca didn't take them back to their small rented house. Instead, he led them straight to a quiet, unmarked hangar at a small regional airport, a contingency plan, one of the last few anchors he hadn't cut. Inside, waiting by a sleek private jet, was Enzo, Luca's right-hand man, the loyal shadow who had overseen the final liquidation of the empire. "The king is weak." "They want me broken," Luca stated, his arm throbbing from the exertion of the run. "They won't just take territory, they want the symbol. And now they know about Zara. They will hunt us forever if we run." Zara stepped forward, her hand resting firmly on Luca's good arm. "Then we don't run. We settle it. They want the symbol, but they need the man. We use that." She moved to the map laid out on the jet's small table, her expression one of cold, calculating fury. "Running is what I did before I met you. We end this. We stop being reactive." Over the next 48 hours, the jet became their war room. Zara, who had once been so fragile and lost, proved to be a startling strategist. Her amnesia was gone, replaced by a ruthless clarity honed by abuse and trauma. She had an instinctive understanding of how the enemy would think, driven by ego and control. "They'll follow the money, Luca," she said, tracing a route on a navigational map. "But you're not moving money, you're moving people. You need to look like you're cornered, ready to cut one final deal to save your own life. You need to lure them into a place where the Marble King had control, but just Luca has the advantage." Luca looked at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and dread. "The only way they'll believe I'm truly gone is if I bleed out the last remnants of the king on my own ground. I will not drag you into this, Zara." "You already did the moment I crashed into you on that rainy street," she countered, her voice firm. "I choose this. I choose you. Now, let's plan." An offer to meet at the last remaining neutral asset he owned, a derelict construction site in the middle of a deserted industrial park. It was a place symbolic of a king trying to salvage ruins, a final, desperate attempt to save his life. The price for his final retreat? A permanent non-aggression pact guaranteed by the immediate withdrawal of the Vespers from the East Coast. It was a lie. Luca knew they would only accept the meeting to capture him, humiliate him, and use him as a bloody warning. "I go in alone," Luca told Zara, his face granite. He was dressed in black, his movements careful but decisive. His arm was still stiff, but the intensity of the man was fully restored. "No," Zara responded instantly. "You need eyes and an exit. I am your exit, Luca. You go in, I stay outside with Enzo. We will be positioned high up in the crane's platform. If you aren't out in 10 minutes, we detonate the secondary charges on the structure's supports. No king is worth saving if he can't be saved by his queen. If you fall, the ruins fall with you. No body, no symbol." Luca knew he couldn't argue. He needed the threat of the total destruction of his final asset to make Volkov hesitate. He kissed her, a deep, desperate contact that held a promise of their future and the possibility of their final goodbye. Broken concrete, rusting steel, and the pervasive smell of dust and stagnant water. Luca walked into the open space, the silence heavy and expectant. The Vespers leader, Volkov, a cruel, precise man known for his calculated sadism, emerged from the shadows flanked by 6 armed men. "The king trades his life for freedom?" Volkov sneered, circling Luca. "A pathetic end for a legend. Your reputation is ruined, Romano." "I'm trading my shadow for my life," Luca corrected, keeping his voice even. "The assets are signed over. The East Coast is yours. Take it and let me go." Volkov laughed, a harsh, dry sound. "No deal, Romano. You leave us no choice but to take the final price. Your blood, and your wife's. We know she's here." That was the trigger. The mention of Zara ignited a primal, violent rage in Luca that far surpassed his old calculated coldness. He moved with brutal, focused efficiency. He disarmed the closest man, not using the stolen weapon as a shield, but plunging it into the man's side. What followed was not a clean skirmish. It was a desperate, bloody melee. Luca fought with the savage abandon of a man who had everything to lose. He used the environment, shattering a man's knee against a steel beam, using scaffolding poles as weapons, anything to compensate for his single good arm and the pain in his ribs. Up on the crane platform, Zara watched the carnage unfold, her face pale but resolute. She could see Luca was tiring, the trauma of his last injury slowing him down. "He's losing speed, Enzo," she said, her voice strained. "Volkov is still standing. He's stalling to wear Luca down." As Luca wrestled a gun from a second man, Volkov used the distraction to grab a heavy, rusty chain. He swung it, catching Luca across the back. Luca roared in pain, stumbling to his knees, his vision blurring. 5 seconds, Enzo," Zara repeated, her hand hovering over the detonator. "Get ready to bring the roof down." "It'll kill him, Zara," Enzo protested. "It'll save his life," she stated, her eyes hard. Just as Enzo raised the detonator, Zara screamed a warning down into the chaotic pit. "Luca, now! The west wall!" Luca, clinging to consciousness, heard her voice cut through the ringing in his ears. He forced himself to move, rolling sharply toward the crumbling west wall just as the detonation sequence began. The secondary charges went off. Not a building-destroying blast, but a controlled, deafening rupture. The west wall of the warehouse collapsed inward, showering the remaining Vespers with debris and dust. Volkov, momentarily stunned and pinned by a falling beam, was neutralized. A battered, bleeding Luca crawled out of the cloud of dust and concrete, dragging the unconscious Volkov behind him. He looked up at the crane platform, saw Zara's face streaked with tears and grime, and knew he was free. "Enzo, the final transfer," Luca gasped, his dark suit soaked in the blood of his enemies and his own wounds. Now, get the location data off Volkov's phone and send it to the authorities. Frame him for everything. We burn the old life down to the foundations." As Enzo rushed to secure the final incriminating papers and evidence, Luca collapsed against Zara. "It's done," he choked out, his body finally surrendering to the pain. "The price is paid. I'm just Luca now." They flew immediately. Luca's arm was professionally reset mid-flight, his wounds stitched by a doctor loyal to Enzo, who promised to disappear after securing their final escape. When they landed hours later in Vancouver, Canada, their destination was not a mansion, but a secluded, anonymous cabin tucked into the vast wilderness. Luca lay healing for weeks, the stillness of the remote setting forcing him to confront the ghost of the king. Zara never left his side, her love a strong, quiet force that demanded honesty. "You fought like a monster, Luca," she told him one evening, changing his bandage. "But you came back to me. You chose the bullet for me, and you bled out the king for us. You let me save you." Luca reached for her hand with his good arm. "I had to be the monster one last time, Zara, to make sure there was no shadow left to follow us here. Every enemy, every ghost, every piece of paper is now pointing to a dead organization. We are clean." He had nothing left. The empire was ashes, the territory was gone, the loyalty of his men was a memory. All he had was a bag of cash, his health slowly returning, and the woman beside him. 6 months passed in quiet isolation. The scars on Luca's body were fading, but the stiffness in his arm remained, a permanent reminder of the price they paid. One cold afternoon, Zara came back from a long walk, her face alight with a profound, gentle certainty. "I found a place," she said, pulling a brochure from her pocket. "It's called Victoria, a quiet city on an island. No towering skylines, just ocean and mountains. A place to start. And I found a job. A cafe, like the last one." Luca looked at the brochure. It was ordinary, simple, and utterly devoid of anything that looked like power or violence. "I'm ready, Zara," he said simply. "Ready for just us." They moved a month later. Luca, now using the name Liam, and Zara, who officially registered her name as Zoe. They built a life of routine, hard work, and honesty. They opened a small, successful bookstore and cafe, a warm, bright space where Liam could read and Zoe could bake. No guards, no late-night calls, no fear. Their ultimate freedom was cemented 5 years later with the birth of their first child, a daughter with Liam's intense dark eyes and Zoe's fierce spirit. Then came their son, a gentle boy who forced Liam to use his once lethal hands for holding, not hurting. Liam Romano, the man who used to be the Marble King, had vanished completely. Only Liam remained, a loving husband and father who carried his old life only in the slight stiffness of his right arm and the deep, vigilant care he took of his family. He had sacrificed everything he owned, fought one last bloody battle, and finally earned the true, clean slate they had always deserved. Their love was the powerful, enduring force that allowed the monster to become a man. And so, the war is won. Luca Romano, the man whose heart was once rumored to be cold stone, finally found peace in the warmth of a life he earned with his own blood. He paid the ultimate price for his love, sacrificing his crown, his empire, and the last vestiges of the monster he had become. Zara, the woman who fled the rain-soaked street and accidentally collided with destiny, proved that fear cannot extinguish love. She chose to stand beside her king, not to share his power, but to guide his surrender. In the quiet, gentle rhythm of Victoria, with the smell of old books and fresh coffee filling their home, Luca and Zara finally built the clean slate they vowed to create. The Marble King is gone, replaced by a simple man, a loving father whose only ambition is the enduring safety of his family. The blood oath is fulfilled. The king is finally at rest. The King's Price. Please like and subscribe to more stories. We hope you enjoyed this journey of brutal violence, fierce loyalty, and the ultimate victory of love. Share your favorite moments and what you think Luca and Zara named their cafe.